If you think Home Depot only sells hammers, nails, and drills, 2026 will make you think again. Because Home Depot is preparing for 10 major changes, and each change revolves around the three things middle-aged Americans care about most: money, time, less trouble in life. From how they manage inventory deliveries and prioritize customers, to whether you're driving around unnecessarily, everything is being rewritten. There are changes that can save you hundreds of dollars each year, but there are also changes that make you wonder, wait, am I still being prioritized? This video doesn't discuss theory or promote the brand. Just say what you'll feel when you step into Home Depot in 2026. If you don't know, you still shop. But knowing this, you shop smarter. And here we come to the first major change. If you walk into Home Depot in 2026 and feel like you're in the wrong place, you might not be wrong. Because behind the familiar shelves, Home Depot is quietly restructuring its entire system, and the focus is no longer on weekend shoppers as it once was. This shift has a very clear internal name, the Pro First strategy. At first glance, everything still looks normal. The hammer is still there, the wood is still piled high, the paint is still colorful. But if you look closer, you'll see the signs separate delivery entrances, priority counters bulk, ordering services, business account systems, and amenities that retail buyers rarely use. Why does Home Depot do that? The answer lies in the spending behavior. A DIY customer spends a few $100s each month. A team of workers can burn through tens of thousands of dollars each year consistently without much thought or price comparison. If we convert it to familiar images, DIY is like buying weekend morning coffee, while Pro is a long-term office lease. In the context of a slow-growing housing market, Home Depot needs a stable and predictable cash flow, and Pro customers are the answer. But the problem starts to appear here. When the system is designed around professional buyers, regular buyers begin to feel crowded out. It's more crowded during rush hour. Employees prioritize processing large orders. Some items are being stored for the project instead of being sold retail. Home Depot didn't say they're abandoning DIY. They're just not as optimal for DIY as they used to be. So the question is, are you still Home Depot's ideal customer in 2026? Or are you entering a store designed for someone else? And this is just the beginning, because once you've professionalized your thinking, every subsequent change, from delivery and inventory to technology, will follow the same direction. In the next part, we'll see how Home Depot built a massive logistics network to support that strategy, and why it could completely change the way you shop. If you still think Home Depot is just a retail chain, then you've probably missed the most important part of the story. Because while customers were still focused on the shelves in front, Home Depot quietly built something else in the back, a massive logistics network designed not just for retail shoppers, but also for construction projects facing deadlines. The two names that rarely appear on the sign, SRS Distribution and GMS, are the key pieces of the puzzle. When combined, they form a system with over 1,200 distribution points and over 8,000 trucks. It's no longer just a few delivery vehicles, but a mobile army capable of covering major cities every morning. Why is Home Depot investing so heavily? Because in a slow-growing housing market, selling a large project is more important than selling an additional small basket of goods. A timely drywall or roofing delivery can determine the entire project to schedule. And in that world, the speed of delivery is power. But this power does not come without consequences. As Home Depot began to think like a logistics provider, the retail store gradually took on the appearance of a transfer station. The shelves have to make way for the large flow of goods. It's not necessary to prioritize project applications. And the familiar experience of going in, choosing and coming back can become different. So the question is, are you walking into a store or a link in the supply chain? Does faster delivery for construction projects mean retail customers have to wait longer? And this is just the surface layer, because to operate such a massive network, Home Depot needs something even more sophisticated than trucks and warehouses. In the next part, we'll break down how Home Depot uses AI and data to control this entire system and why it can determine whether or not you'll be able to buy the item you need. Home Depot doesn't hang signs. We use AI. There are no robots walking around in the store. There's no robotic voice asking what you need. But if in 2026 you walk into Home Depot and everything is suspiciously just right, you're very likely standing in a system controlled by algorithms. Behind the scenes, Home Depot is using AI to do something that sounds simple but is incredibly difficult. Predict what you'll need, even before you drive to the store. Not monthly, not by quarter, and it's repaired by the hour, by region, by weather, and by season. AI here is like a warehouse manager that never sleeps, always counting every item, remembering every shopping habit, and whispering into the system's ear, prepare more. Don't let it be missing. Why does Home Depot have to do this? Because in their world, being out of stock isn't just losing a sale, it's losing trust, especially for pro customers, those who work on a schedule and don't have time for luck. Once they get there and it's not what they expected, they might not come back. But the impact doesn't stop there. When AI helps stabilize goods, prices also become less volatile. There are few scenes of hasty buying for fear of shortages, low psychological pressure. And for seniors, that means less stress on each trip. What's remarkable is Home Depot's AI isn't trying to impress you. It doesn't talk. No advertising. Just quietly eliminate the mistakes you used to think were common. So the question is, when a system starts making decisions for you, what will always be available? And when things become too smooth, do you still have a choice? Or are you just going with the flow that's already been set? Because in the next step, Home Depot will not only predict demand, but also decide what is worthy of being on the shelves. And that's the story of the sequel, when inventory is no longer guesswork, but live data. There's a little lie that every shopper has heard. The system says it's in stock. The problem is, the system isn't the one picking up your order for you. For years, inventory at Home Depot, as well as most traditional retailers, existed in two parallel worlds, a beautiful number on the screen and a completely empty shelf in real life. By 2026, Home Depot decided to close that gap. The major change lies in how they synchronize the app, store, warehouse, delivery flow into a single data stream. No more sold items that haven't been updated. There's no more talk about being in transit. All product movements are recorded in near real time. Previously, inventory was like an old paper map. You could see the roads, but you'd get lost if you tried to follow them. And now, Home Depot is switching to live GPS, updating every turn, every bottleneck. Why do they have to do this? Because every meaningless trip for a customer doesn't just cost gas. It takes trust, especially for middle-aged people, those who don't shop for fun, but to solve necessary tasks. When inventory becomes more real, the consequences are very clear. At least 30, 60 minutes are saved per trip. There are fewer instances of driving around only to return empty-handed, and most importantly, the feeling of control is returned to the buyer. But it's also here that a big question arises. When data decides what deserves to be on the shelves, will your choices still be as wide as before? Because when inventory is no longer guesswork, Home Depot's next step won't just be whether or not to have it, but whether to keep or eliminate it. And that's when we enter the next shift, where online and offline experiences begin to merge in ways you might not be ready for. Home Depot didn't say they were moving online. In reality, they are doing something much more sophisticated, blurring the lines between online and physical stores. If you've ever had this experience ordering online, going to the store to pick it up, only to find an item missing, having to go back to the counter, waiting in line, and then exchanging it again, then in 2026, Home Depot wants you to completely forget about that frustrating sequence. Behind the scenes, Home Depot is redesigning its entire omnichannel system so that every shopping action looks like a continuous flow uninterrupted by platform or location. A website is no longer just a preview. The store is no longer just a place to pick up goods. Everything is connected as a single coordination center. For middle-aged customers and busy families, time is the ultimate luxury. Less pushing of bulky shopping carts, less need to return to the store due to deficiencies, and less need to relearn the process each time you buy differently. But it's also here that a thought-provoking question arises. When everything becomes too convenient, are you being served better, or are you being led down a pre-designed path? Because when online and offline merge, Home Depot not only knows what you buy, but also how you buy it. And in the next change, we'll see how that data is used to classify customers and who will be prioritized the most in the new system. Home Depot doesn't have signs that say, "For professionals only." No separate lane with barriers. There is no customer classification notice board. But by 2026, if you pay close attention, you'll realize one thing: not every customer is treated the same. At the heart of this change is a familiar name that is being quietly upgraded: Pro Extra. At first glance, it just sounds like a points program. But behind the scenes, Pro Extra is gradually becoming a customer value recognition system, identifying who buys a lot, who buys frequently, and who deserves priority. Think of it this way: a DIY shopper is like a weekend diner. Pro is a customer who signs a contract for lunch for the entire year. When resources are limited, who do you think the restaurant will serve first? With Pro, the benefits go beyond just discounts. These are order management tools, purchase history by project, quick support, and utilities that help them save their most precious commodity: time. As for retail buyers, the experience is still usable, but rarely a priority. This creates a very special and very sensitive feeling, not being rejected, but rather being ranked behind. And it was right here that the question began to echo in the minds of many middle-aged customers: does buying less mean I'm less important? Is there a smart way to buy so I don't get left out of this game? Home Depot will say they don't leave anyone behind. But the new system is whispering a different message. Your worth doesn't lie in who you are, but in how much revenue you generate. And once customers are categorized using data, the next step is almost inevitable. And that's Home Depot's next big change. Home Depot doesn't call this a reduction in personnel. They call it by a very clean-sounding name: increased productivity. But for long-time shoppers, this change will be felt very clearly, not on the bulletin board, but in every step taken within the store. By 2026, Home Depot is accelerating automation in areas that were once very people-intensive: fewer manual tasks, more self-service processes, and more decisions handled by systems before employees can intervene. For tech-savvy customers, this is an advantage: less waiting, little explanation needed. Everything is faster and more accurate. But for another group, especially middle-aged people, the feeling is very different. It's not that I was refused help, but that no one is as proactive in helping as before. Home Depot believes automation will help stores run smoother, reduce errors, and serve more customers simultaneously. That's true, statistically. But the question is, when performance becomes the top priority, where will personal experience stand? Do you want a faster store or a store that understands you better? Because when people take a step back to make way for the system, What changes isn't just the process, but also the feeling you get when you walk into the store. Why, after all, did Home Depot accept that trade-off in a year that is forecast to be very cautious in terms of growth? Let's move on to the next change to find the answer. If you're waiting for 2026 to be the year Home Depot launches a spectacular growth spurt, then you're probably looking in the wrong direction, because instead of accelerating, Home Depot is actively easing off the gas. It's not because they're getting weaker, but because they read the picture in front of them very clearly. The housing market hasn't fully recovered yet. Consumers are spending more cautiously. Major projects are carefully considered item by item. In that context, Home Depot did not choose a quick win strategy. They chose a word that sounds very boring, but is extremely powerful: practical. What does practical mean here? It doesn't promise rapid growth. Don't rush into mass expansion. Don't make changes that force customers to relearn from scratch. If we translate this into a familiar image, Home Depot in 2026 will be like a seasoned driver slowing down when it rains instead of flooring it to prove they're a good driver. For shoppers, this brings a very specific feeling: safety. Prices are more stable. Little change is shocking. The shopping experience shouldn't be disrupted just for short-term experiments. But the downside of pragmatism is also very clear. Few exciting breakthroughs, not much wow factor, and sometimes it feels like everything is standing still. And you? Do you want a stable and predictable Home Depot, or a Home Depot that's risky but full of surprises? In an uncertain year, do you prioritize a sense of security or the opportunity to break through? Because when Home Depot chose to go slow and steady, every subsequent decision revolved around keeping customers in the store longer, not through promises, but through systems. In the next part, we'll see how Home Depot began to shift from selling products to selling complete solutions. For decades, Home Depot has been selling you one item. You take it home yourself, self-assembly, handle it yourself if something goes wrong. But by 2026, that model is quietly becoming outdated. Home Depot no longer wants to be just a place to buy hammers, paint, or drills. They want to sell you a complete result: a room finished on time, a roof without delays, a project completed instead of left unfinished. Behind the scenes, products are starting to be tightly integrated with service delivery and scheduling. It's no longer about buying this and figuring out the rest on your own, but rather buy this, and the system will pull in everything necessary. For shoppers, this is very clearly appealing. Few mistakes, less need to go back to the store because of missing items. Few project scenes are delayed just because of a small detail that was forgotten. But the other side of the story is also very real. When you buy a solution, you're not just paying for the product, you're paying for convenience, coordination, and the right to worry less. And not everyone wants or needs to pay extra for that. So the question is, do you want to control every detail yourself, or are you willing to pay a fee for peace of mind? When everything is prepackaged, are you being helped, or are you gradually losing your initiative? Because once Home Depot has sold the solution, the final step is almost inevitable. And that's the next change, where Home Depot is preparing to reshape the entire in-store experience for the next phase. On the surface, 2026 might disappoint many people. Don't open new stores in a rush. No sales boom. There was no wow moment that would make headlines. But that is the most dangerous and also the most strategic thing. By 2026, for Home Depot, it's not a year to show off, but a year to assemble. Behind the scenes, every piece is being put in place. Technology to understand customers more deeply, logistics for faster and more accurate delivery, and a store model flexible enough for both professionals and retail customers. Home Depot in 2026 will be like a construction site, clearing the foundation, Not noisy, not grand, but any deviations at this point will determine the entire building later. Real expansion plans, 15 to 20 stores per year, were pushed to the 2027-2030 period. That means when Home Depot gets back on track, they don't want to make corrections mid-course. They want to run straight. For shoppers, the consequences won't be immediate, but it will come very clearly. A Home Depot is less like a weekend supermarket. A Home Depot is like a project operations center where everything is designed to be fast, accurate, and scalable. And for many middle-aged people, the familiar feeling of the old days wandering among the shelves may gradually become a memory. The final question is therefore no longer will Home Depot change, but rather, will you have time to change your shopping habits before Home Depot completes this transformation? Because after 2026, you won't just be stepping into a different store. You are entering a completely new Home Depot. Home Depot will not collapse in 2026. It didn't explode either. They quietly changed everything that matters most: how they prioritize customers, how they run their stores, and how you shop, without you even realizing it. The big question isn't whether Home Depot is right or wrong, but rather, are you still shopping the old way in a system that has changed the rules of the game? What do you think? Do you think Home Depot is getting smarter or moving away from its traditional customers? If you had to choose, would you prefer stability, predictability, or innovation? High risk. Please leave your comments below. These different perspectives are what make this discussion worthwhile. If you're interested in major changes in retail consumerism and how corporations are subtly shaping our behavior, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. The next video will help you shop smarter, not just buy more. The video content is analytical, synthetic, and commentary-based, drawing on public information and market trends at the time of creation. This is not investment or financial advice, and all opinions are subject to change based on actual developments. Appointment. See you in the next video, where we'll clarify the unspoken changes.